Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Shoulda Gone Pro podcast. We are back again to do our NFL playoff predictions. If you're watching the video version of this, you can see we got the brackets up, so that could be a good way to follow along. If you're listening to it with the audio, we'll make sure you guys aren't too confused when we're saying what's what. But welcome back, Brock. How you doing?
I'm good, Eric. How are you? Just got off work, so came back ready to talk some playoff football. My favorite time of the year.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm the same way. It's kind of a weird thing because I'm really happy that it's here, but I'm also sad because I know this is showing at the standing of football, and then we have to wait half a year for it to come back. So it's a little happy and sad at the same time. But um, yeah, let's just hop into it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go game by game, starting with the wild card, um, and say who we think we got. I'll put mine on the left. Brock's will be on the right, and we'll get cooking from there. So, the first game of the of the playoffs, at least on this bracket, not in real time, but in this bracket is the Patriots and the Bills, 3 versus 6, some division rivals going at it. Um, the Bills just clinched it up and moved to the 3 spot with the Bengals loss, and the Patriots moved down because they lost and the Raiders won. So a little bit of shifting there at the end to make these two guys go at it. But what are your initial thoughts about Pat's Bills?
I think this is definitely a game I'm excited for. They met twice in the regular season. The Patriots won the first matchup in what was that crazy weather game where the wind was whipping and neither
Oh
team
my
really scored a
gosh.
lot of points. It was honestly one of the craziest weather games I've seen in the NFL. Bills took the second matchup. Here, I think the key here is, again, weather going to play a factor. I heard it's supposed to be like 0 degrees. This kicks off late Saturday, I think around 7 o'clock. So definitely going to be a cold one out there in Buffalo. And as much as I want to pick the Bills because of Josh Allen, because of the talent they have at receiver and what they can do offensively down the field, I think when you match up with a defense as good as the Patriots is in that tough weather, Buffalo struggles to run the football outside of Josh Allen. And I don't know how well they're going to be able to throw the ball in that cold weather. So I think that shifts the advantage to the Patriots. And in a tough, I think this is going to be a very low scoring game. I think I'm going to pick the Patriots to beat the Bills in not but maybe by a field goal, late second field goal, definitely going to be low scoring. Patriots to win against the Bills, take the season series 2-1, and move on to the divisional round of the playoffs.
I'm a little upset with your response because I was hoping that I would be the only one to pick the upset here, but I am also going to pick the Patriots. I know that the Bills have a great offense. The defense is a pretty solid unit as well. But when I think about that Monday night game in Buffalo where Mac Jones threw 3 passes and they were still able to have their defense win the game, that kind of showed me that this team can adapt to whatever they need to. And I think if it was anywhere else, it'd be a totally different story. But the fact that it's going to be in the blizzard in Buffalo, you'd think it would favor the home team, the Bills. But I'm thinking that the Patriots, who played able to pull out that win a while ago in the bad weather, will be able to do it again. I think Belichick will be able to keep Mac Jones under control, especially as a rookie quarterback in his first playoff start. There's a lot of pressure there, but I think that if any coach is going to be able to help him out, it'd be Bill Belichick. So I'm going with the Patriots again. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think the run game will be a big difference, and I think the Pats have a better run game as well. Um, the Bills rely too much on Josh Allen to run the ball, and I do think Singletary is a decent running back, but Damian Harris is just a tank. So I think it'll be a close one as well, but I am also picking the Patriots. So we both picked the upset in the first game. The next one is Raiders at the Bengals, which I believe is the first game of the playoffs, which is tomorrow. So how you feeling about Raiders Bengals?
I think this is going to be on the flip side of the Patriots Bills matchup. I think this one's going to be very high scoring. I think both teams are going to have to score a lot of points to win this game. Neither team has an overly great defense. The Raiders have a good front four, but their back seven and the linebacking core and the secondary, I think, is where they struggle the most. And I think that bodes well for the Bengals. Their downfield attack with their great rookie receiver, Jamar Chase, who I think should win Offensive Rookie of the Year, in my opinion. I mean, you can't discredit what Mac Jones has done in New England, but the season that Jamar Chase has had, especially that game against Kansas City, I think he's going to be very special for years to come. I mean, I think Joe Burrow at home in his first playoff start, I think he gets it done. Derek Carr also making his first playoff start. I think the Bengals have more offensive talent and a little bit better of a defense. You know, they have Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. I'll wrap that all up with Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is going to take some sacks in this game. Could worry you a little bit, but I think the Raiders are going to have a very hard time stopping that high-powered Bengals offense. And I think the Bengals get this one done in what's going to be a very high-scoring football game.
Again, I tend to agree with you. I think that the Bengals, their offense is just too high-powered. I mean, I think they're one of the most fun football teams to watch this season by far. And I don't think the Raiders be able to keep up with them in the secondary. I mean, if all the weapons are firing for the Bengals with Chase, Mixon out the backfield, and then Higgins and Boyd as well, I think it's just too much for the Raiders defensively to deal with. The one X factor I see is, especially I watched their last game against the Chargers for the Raiders last week, and Max Crosby is an animal, and I think if he can get a lot of pressure, or the D-line in general can get a lot of pressure on Burrow and be able to limit his ability to feed the playmakers, that could be something where the Raiders could excel. But I think the Bengals pull this out again, another high-scoring game with two just mediocre defenses. But I think the Bengals pull it out and they get their first playoff win, I think, since 1990. Which is the only streak longer than that's the Lions. So that was a little bit of my Lions pride for a little bit, but I'm going with the Bengals as well on that one. So, and then the last one.
I was reading a tweet on Twitter. I'm pretty sure that it said something along the lines of no one has texted about the first Bengals playoff win, because the last time the Bengals won a playoff game in like 1991, texting wasn't even invented yet. I think it came out in 1992. And then just one more thing on that. Yeah, that's definitely the weak part of the entire Bengals offense, is that offensive line. I think they kind of came under fire a little bit in the NFL draft this year. Had the chance to draft Penei Sewell, the left tackle out of Oregon. Chose to pass him up to take Jamar Chase, which, I mean, you can't discredit that. I mean, look what he's done. I mean, he's put up a phenomenal season. You got that chemistry that him and Joe Burrow had dating back to their time at LSU. And, I mean, Penei Sewell's carved out his own nice rookie season with the Lions, and I don't think either team is upset with their picks, but that's definitely something the Bengals are going to have to address this offseason and in the draft next year moving forward if they want to contend for a Super Bowl and keep being a mainstay in the playoffs.
I 100% agree. I was one of the ones that was really surprised they didn't take Penei Sewell as well. But I think that Jamar Chase and Burrow with that chemistry has really proven me wrong this season. And I mean, I think he can get past 95% of the corners out there, and he's only a rookie. So I think that ended up being the right move, even though they got a lot of slack for it. They do need to focus on the offensive line and the free agency and in the draft, but I think they took a risk with getting the wide receiver instead of Penei Sewell, but it worked out well for them. So the last game, which I personally think is going to be a little bit of a snoozer, is the Chiefs and the Steelers. I assume I know who you have, but
yeah, I've watched a couple of Steelers games. I watched the Bears Steelers game. I watched the Browns Steelers. And I mean, this Big Ben just, as great of a career he's had, hats off to him, 2-time Super Bowl champ, has a spot booked in Canton already in the Hall of Fame. But I mean, he just looks shot. The Steelers offense is just not on point right now. I just cannot see them going into Kansas City even with some of the struggles Kansas City's had offensively this year, I think the Steelers' offense, I can't foresee them outscoring this Chiefs team, which I think is going to be what it takes to upset the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, yeah, Chiefs right back where they belong, divisional playoffs with what's going to be a great matchup against the Bengals.
I agree. I personally think for the Steelers as an organization that Big Ben hung around a little bit too long. Um, I mean, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best players in the Steelers ever, but I think that he hung around a little bit too long and he's kind of stunted their growth for the future. But it'll be a nice little goodbye to Ben Roethlisberger, who, even though I'm not a fan of him, I was kind of hoping that the game wouldn't end in a tie last night so that he'd at least be able to have his like farewell, instead of just sitting on the couch saying, "Well, they tied, so I'm gone." But
Yeah.
the Chiefs are just too much for the Steelers. They do have some good guys in the defensive end. T.J. Watt led the league in sacks this year, so the Chiefs' O line can be iffy at times, and if it is, then T.J. Watt might have a decent game. Micah Fitzpatrick, if you put him out there against Tyreek or Kelsey, might have some success. But they played a couple weeks ago, and the Chiefs just demolished them. I think it's gonna be the same kind of thing here. Probably the biggest snoozer of the playoffs, in my opinion. But just for everyone listening along and not watching the video, I'll just confirm we both had the Patriots beating the Bills, the Bengals beating the Raiders, and the Chiefs beating the Steelers on the AFC side. So moving to the NFC side, we have the Cowboys and the 49ers. The Cowboys just moved up into the 3 spot, and Niners clinched with a big win in overtime against the Rams last week. So how you feeling about Niners and Cowboys?
I mean, I'm another one of the games on the NFC side. I think this and the Arizona game is the one I'm most excited to watch. I think these teams match up well. The Cowboys have a great offensive line. The 49ers have a great defense. I think what comes down to it here, the Cowboys are 6-0 this year when they play teams in the NFC East and are 6-5 when they play everybody else. And I mean, the Niners are riding high right now. You mentioned coming off that big win against the Cardinals. They've kind of hit their stride offensively and as a team leading up to the playoffs. So they're playing their best football at the right time. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo gets a lot of hate. I think it's not really necessary. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's had success with the Niners in the playoffs. I think that the 49ers really take advantage. I think where the advantage is, I think the matchup to watch is Deebo Samuel on the outside versus Trayvon Diggs. As great of a season as Trayvon Diggs has had this year, there's a reason he has 11 interceptions. I mean, they're going to target him. He gives up big plays down the field. I think he's given up over 800 receiving yards this year. So he is a corner that takes a lot of chances. And I mean, when you look at him compared to other great corners in the past, there's a reason that Deion Sanders, Darrelle Revis, Patrick Peterson, Jalen Ramsey, guys like that are never going to sniff 11 interceptions in a season, is because the quarterbacks and offensive coordinators just know you can't throw to that side of the field. Those corners are just so locked down that you can't throw to them. There's just no point. And I mean, that's not the case with Trayvon Diggs. Yes, he's had a good season. You've got to give him credit. Dallas has really turned around their defense, him and Micah Parsons, who I personally think, no disrespect to TJ Watt, should be the defensive player of the year. Obviously defensive rookie of the year, but I think defensive player of the year too as well, with the season he's had as a rookie at Penn State. But I think Deebo Samuel is just going to be too much for Trayvon Diggs to handle, and George Kittle starting to get healthy. So I think the 49ers are going to be able to run the football, pass the ball down the field, and I just don't think Dallas is going to be able to do enough to beat this 49ers team.
Wow. Again, I'm kind of upset because we both picked the 6 seeds and we didn't even talk about it beforehand. But I also picked the 49ers. I watched them play against the Rams last week, and I've been following along with them a little bit this season. It's hard not to see Cowboys games because they're always on TV everywhere you go. But I think the difference will be this game seems like a toss-up to me. I think the Cowboys their defense, or their offense is where they might be able to burn the Niners, because the Niners have had a questionable secondary down the stretch. Some guys are starting to step up and get better, but they don't have a lot of those mainstay guys on their secondary. So the Cowboys might be able to get some big plays on them. But I just watched how the Niners played, and I just think that they're the most complete team out of these two teams. I have some questions about Dallas's defense outside of DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, but I think the Niners go in here. They're one of the hottest teams in football right now. A lot of people didn't even think that they'd be anything that good this year. I think if Garoppolo ends up playing a little bit questionable, they can go to Trey Lance, who I think is going to be a star in the league. And I just see too many things favoring the Niners here. Deebo Samuel is like the ultimate Swiss knife, and being able to have a guy like that keeps the defense off guard is huge. And I think that steps into it, especially if he goes up against Trayvon Diggs, who I think is a little overrated in my opinion, as you were saying as well. But I'm taking the Niners as well in a shocker, and I know a lot of Cowboys fans will be angry at both of us, but
And I mean, I just think one of the most impressive things about the Niners this year, I mean, Elijah Mitchell was a 6th-round pick this year as a
exactly, yeah.
rookie. I mean, I ended up picking him up on my fantasy team randomly one week, didn't even know who he was. And I mean, he's put together an incredible season, even in limited time. He got hurt toward the end of the season, didn't start, I don't think, or really play that much until the middle of the season. And I mean, the way that the Niners are just able to plug guys into that running game, they've done a good job getting Deebo involved in the running game and still have success. I think that's just a credit to what Kyle Shanahan can do as a head coach. And I just think the head coaching favors the Niners. Quarterback play is a toss-up. I mean, Garoppolo or Dak could have a bad night and this team could lose. But I just think, like you were saying, too many things can go the Niners' way when they're playing their best football. And I think I would take that. I would definitely, like I said, I'm happy to take them in this game. I think it's going to be a very good one, and I'm excited to watch them.
I agree. And what you mentioned about Elijah Mitchell and that running back room, I feel like their running back room has been one of the ones that's been hit by injury the most over the past couple of seasons. I feel like I'm always seeing Raheem Mostert. They had Jerick McKinnon for a couple of years. So many guys just keep getting hurt for them, and guys have to step up and take the role. And one thing I've really noticed about them this year too is they're really good at controlling the pace of the game, and making the game be played how they want to play it. So, especially when they were playing the Rams last week, I know I keep going back to that, but it was recent. But they were really good at running the football and doing it consistently, especially when teams know they're going to run the football. They were still able to do so well, and that's not easy to do. So, I think the Niners are able to control the tempo of the game, kind of slow down the Cowboys' offense, and play it how they want to play it, and go in there and get a big win in Jerry's world. But the next one, an NFC West matchup, which I think is going to be a great game as well. The Rams and the Cardinals, 4 versus 5. They split the season series. The Rams have been moving upwards a little bit until their loss last week, but the Cardinals have really been on a downturn since an amazing start. So, how you feeling about Rams Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the Cardinals-Rams game when they did what no one thought they could do. I mean, they came into LA and torched that great Rams defense. And I think that's when people started to take Arizona for real. And yeah, as you mentioned, both teams kind of moving in opposite directions since then. This is another tough one. I like the Cardinals in this one. I know it's Kyler Murray's first playoff experience. I just don't trust Matt Stafford with the way he's played in some big games this year and some of the interceptions he's thrown. I mean, he should have, if Minnesota, I mean, we say what you want about Minnesota, but Minnesota should have beat the Rams. You know, Matt Stafford had some terrible interceptions in that game and basically handed it to him, but the Rams ended up getting it done. And I mean, even it took a late comeback against the Ravens a couple weeks ago on a last minute throw to Odell to win that game. I just think they've been so inconsistent at times this year. And in the playoffs, I just feel like you can't make the mistakes that Matt Stafford has been prone to making, not only this season, but throughout his entire career. I mean, granted, I know some of those were on some horrible Detroit Lions teams, but you've still seen the carelessness on a great loaded roster in LA. I mean, they got Odell, Cooper Kupp just had one of the best receiving seasons in NFL history. I just think when it comes down to it, Matt Stafford is going to make one or two key mistakes that you just can't make in a playoff game. And I think that's going to be enough for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals to get it done. I think a lot of it, too, depends on if DeAndre Hopkins is back at 100%. He missed the last couple of weeks of the regular season with a knee injury. If he's back and 100%, I think that the Cardinals have one of the most talented offensive rosters, let alone receiving cores in the league. I think it's going to be tough for the Rams to slow them down. And I think the Cardinals go into SoFi Stadium, pick up a big win in Kyler Murray's first NFL playoff game.
So this is the first one that we're going to disagree on. I'm taking the Rams here. And the reason I'm taking the Rams is I'm actually a Matt Stafford believer. A lot of people have been hating on him recently. And he has not been playing up to his standards by far. But just looking at that roster as a whole, I think there's too many great guys on that roster to compared to the Cardinals. I feel like have more holes, and I feel like Sean McVay is really good at controlling the game and controlling the tempo. And he knows it's going to be Matt Stafford's first playoff game with the Rams. He's trying to get his first ever playoff win. He knows how to simplify it enough to where he's not making the Stafford do these crazy plays and just kind of warm himself into the game. I think that the secondary for the Cardinals might get burnt a little bit with Kupp and Odell. And I think if it ends up being a high-scoring game, then it could be a lot more of a toss-up. But I think the Rams are able to control the tempo more. I do think it's going to be a great game regardless, and I would not be surprised at all if the Cardinals won this game. But I have more trust in the Rams to pull this out. And even if people are saying that if Stafford does have a bad game, I mean, McVay took a good team with Jared Goff at quarterback to the Super Bowl, and that just shows me that they're able to adapt to however they need to play to win the game. So I'm taking the Rams here, but I would not be surprised at all if the Cardinals won. I'm kind of thinking it'll go either way. So the last one is the Bucks and the Eagles. Another 2-7. They played it earlier in the year. The Buccaneers pulled it out. How you feeling about Bucks and Eagles?
I think again, Tampa. I think Philadelphia is getting Tampa Bay at a good time. Tampa Bay had a myriad of injuries toward the end of the season, with Chris Godwin going down with the ACL, Mike Evans getting hurt. He came back in Week 18 and still played. Leonard Fournette got hurt as well. So I think Tampa Bay is definitely the much more banged up team. So I would worry about their health a little bit. But I mean, you've seen it for 20 years in the NFL. You can't bet against Tom Brady. And I mean, I think this game is a lot closer than a lot of people will think. I think Jalen Hurts does have some success running the football, and I think that will hurt. I think his legs will hurt Tampa Bay's defense a lot more than his arm will. But I mean, ultimately, if it's a battle of quarterbacks, I trust Tom Brady a lot more than I trust Jalen Hurts. And I mean, I think even if Tampa Bay goes down early in this game or needs a drive late, I mean, who better would you want under center than Tom Brady to do that? I think Tampa Bay beats Philadelphia at home and advances to the second round of the playoffs.
I also agree with the Buccaneers winning that game. First of all, you can just say the word name Tom Brady, and that could be an explanation enough. But also, I think that the Bucks are one of the best teams at stopping the run, and it's going to really limit the running backs to be able to get into play for the Eagles. And Jalen Hurts will have to make a lot of plays on his own. The secondary for the Bucks can be questionable at times, but I think the front seven for the Buccaneers is too much for them to handle. Even if Hurts starts to get out and run around the pocket, then I think the experience too a lot favors the Buccaneers. I mean, they returned up pretty much every starter from last year, so a lot of these guys have the experience of going all the way to the Super Bowl and winning it and knowing what it takes. And last year we saw Devin White really stepped up in the playoffs and was a huge defensive guy for them. And I think they're going to have somebody step up as well this year. I don't know if it'll be White or somebody else, but they're going to have somebody step up and really be the anchor of this defense. Fournette is coming back this week, so he'll be there to help out Tom and give him another target, especially since he's missing Godwin and then the whole AB situation as well. But I think the Buccaneers are just too talented of a team, and to have the Eagles come in and beat them on their home turf. So I'm picking the Buccaneers as well. So our NFC picks, we both had the Niners beating the Cowboys. Brock had the Cardinals beating the Rams, and I had the Rams beating the Cardinals. And we both picked the Buccaneers to beat the Eagles. So now we're on to the divisional round. So the final 8 teams. Um, we both had the same games here for 3 of the 4 games. The first one is the Patriots and the Titans. Titans winning home field advantage have been on a little bit of a streak lately. The Patriots, who we both picked going into Buffalo and winning, could be an interesting matchup. So how you feeling about Pats and Titans?
I think the soul of this game, the decider of this game, comes down to Derrick Henry's health. I know he has been practicing, and I think they do expect him to be back and play. I would just wonder what percentage, what's his health like. I think if he's anything less, an 80% Derrick Henry is still better than a lot of running backs in this league. But I mean, if he really is still hurt and hampered by that foot injury, you've seen Ryan Tannehill struggle at times a lot this season. He's had a 4 interception game, and they struggled to put Tennessee away, or not. Excuse me, they struggled to put the Texans away in Week 18. I'm still taking the Titans here just because I think that's a roster that's been to an AFC Championship game, has playoff experience, and I trust them with Julio, A.J. Brown. I trust them more to get it done than against the Patriots. I think the quarterback battle is certainly one to watch out for. I don't really think either one of the quarterbacks is in that upper echelon, upper tier of the league. I think they both have pretty low ceilings in terms of what they can do. But I think with Derrick Henry being back for that offense is just going to make such a difference. I mean, no one can stop him. I mean, there's the reason they call him King Henry, and he was leading the league in rushing yards this year, even a couple weeks past when he got hurt. So that just shows you what an incredible start he got off to this year and how he would have finished the season. So I'm going to take Tennessee here to win against the Patriots and secure a spot in the conference championship.
I am also taking the Titans here. I think it'll be a lot closer than people think it will be. I think even if you have a 50%, Derrick Henry is better than most running backs in the league. So even if he's out there and he's not 100%, the defense will still have to account for him. And I think that will really open up the passing lanes for Julio, A.J. Brown, and get Tannehill in a little bit of a rhythm. I think that the question is the Titans' defense. The thing that leads me to believe that win this game, even with the defense not being towards the top of the league as far as talent goes, is that they're playing a Patriots team who is not known to put up huge scoring numbers against top tier teams. I mean, they have played against teams like Jacksonville and the Browns and put up big numbers, but when they go in on an away game in a very important game, I don't think they're going to be able to put up as much numbers as they want to, especially with Mac Jones, who, I think he's going to be a great quarterback in the league, but he's still just a rookie. So I'm taking the Titans here. I think it'll be closer than people expect it to be. And I think that the Titans offense will just be too much to handle, and the Pats offense will be able to keep up. So I'm taking the Titans as well. The other AFC divisional game that we both picked was the Bengals and the Chiefs, which I think would be a fantastic game. We saw this a couple weeks ago. The Bengals pulled it off with a game-winning field goal. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. How do you feel about Bengals Chiefs?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I think the Chiefs secondary obviously struggled as a whole, but they specifically struggled covering Jamar Chase when they matched up a couple weeks ago. I think Zach Taylor has done a terrific job this year with Cincinnati. All credit to Joe Burrow. I mean, he's easily cemented himself in the MVP race, rightfully so. I mean, they have a great offense, like we just mentioned in the round against the Raiders. Joe Mixon, 3 great receivers. You do worry about the offensive line, but I think the Chiefs' defense has easily been their Achilles heel all season, and it reared their head when they met up a couple weeks ago. A lot of points. The Bengals actually got down early in that game, and I think that's just one thing about Joe Burrow. He just has that kind of swag, that moxie about him that even if they get down early, he makes a couple mistakes, throws a couple picks, he doesn't let it affect him. And I think that Cincinnati goes into Arrowhead, doesn't let the crowd noise affect them. I think they keep their, I don't know if I want to really say magical season because they do have talent, but I'll say magical season alive. And I think they punch their ticket in what will be another fun conference championship matchup. And I think they meet Tennessee in the AFC Championship game.
Wow, that is a big upset, especially with Kansas City, who's been to the Super Bowl the past few years. But I am sticking with the Chiefs, which might be the easier pick, people might say. But I look at they both have fantastic offenses, so if they cancel each other out, then it goes to the defenses. And I think that the Chiefs' defense is a little bit better than the Bengals' defense, and I think that their experience as well will help override any talent that they're missing compared to the Bengals. So I think that the Chiefs just have that more experience. I kind of relate this to the Browns game against the Chiefs last year in the playoffs. That was a close game, but the Browns just didn't have enough to get over the edge against the Chiefs. I think it'll be similar to that, just more high scoring. I think the Bengals will definitely hang in there and kind of show everyone that they're on the stay for the future. And I think give this Bengals team a few years and they'll be moving higher up in this bracket than I have them. But the Chiefs just have too much experience for me, and their offense is just going to overwhelm that secondary for the Bengals, who besides Jesse Bates they don't have a great secondary. So I'm taking the Chiefs here, and they'll meet the Titans in the AFC Championship game. So just to recap, I have Chiefs and Titans in the AFC Championship game, and Brock has Bengals and Titans. One more thing before we keep going. I noticed this because the screens keep moving because of the ads. We are not sponsored by any of these companies. Okay, so moving ahead, we both had the Niners and the Packers going up in the NFC divisional. Niners going into Lambeau. How are you feeling about this one?
I mean, Green Bay's undefeated at home this year for a reason. It's a tough place to play. The weather will likely play a factor into that game. Say what you want about Green Bay. I mean, they have struggled at times to put teams away this year. Specifically, they struggled to put away Chicago when Chicago came in there. Struggled to put away Cleveland a couple weeks ago, despite Baker Mayfield throwing 4 picks. Got a little bit of help from the refs, but that could just be nitpicking Bears fan. But it does seem like Green Bay somehow always comes away with a key call when they need it. But anyway, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to win league MVP this year. I think this is going to be a great matchup. It's actually a rematch of the NFC Championship game, I believe, from 2019 when the 49ers got the better of Green Bay really just blew them out, ransacked Aaron Rodgers with that great defense. I'm going to go with Green Bay. I think coming off a bye, it's going to allow Aaron Rodgers to get a little bit more healthy with that toe injury, any nicks and bruises they have. It's going to allow David Bakhtiari to get his legs underneath him a little bit more coming off the torn ACL. Jair Alexander as well, who's coming off the shoulder injury. I think Green Bay is getting healthy at the right time. And especially with that added week of rest, it's only going to help. I think the 49ers give Green Bay a really good game. And I think this one is going to be close up until the end. I mean, that's how it was when the teams played earlier in the regular season. It took a Jimmy Garoppolo led the Niners right down the field. They scored to go ahead. And then Aaron Rodgers, that bad man that Stephen A. Smith always says does what he does, brought him right back down the field, kicked the game-winning field goal. I think it's could play out very similar to that once again. And in that situation, I like Aaron Rodgers under center. I'll give it to Green Bay in a very, very tightly, very competitive game.
I am also going with the Packers here. I think the Packers, with Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, just that connection alone is going to put too much pressure on the Niners secondary. And I think the Packers defense is able to be competitive with Niners defense as far as talent and how they play in this game. I think Niners are going to go into Lambeau and feel the pressure a little bit. I don't think Garoppolo's going to have a particularly great game. I think he's going to force it to Deebo Samuel a little bit too much, and the defense will be able to realize that. I think the Packers are just too much on a roll right now, and just the Devontae Adams Rodgers connection alone is going to be overwhelming for the Niners. It could be a decent game, but I think this might be a little more lopsided than people might think it is. Even though I did have them beating the Cowboys earlier, I think that they go into Lambeau and face a whole different demon with Rodgers. So
I mean,
I'm going with the
it's a tough place to play. I mean, certainly coming from California, they don't play in cold weather like that all too often. And I mean, they're gonna be meeting in middle of January in Green Bay. I've been to a game at Lambeau around this time, and I mean, it was freezing. I mean, there's a reason they call it the frozen tundra. And I mean,
yeah.
I just think the elements alone are going to pose a bit of a problem for the Niners. And I mean, that's what Green Bay does. I mean, they get to playoff football and they can win in the cold. So I think that definitely they have an advantage there. I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, I don't think there's a better quarterback wide receiver duo in the NFL. You could argue this year maybe it's Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp based on numbers, but I think long term over the course of their careers, since those two have been hitting, they've been hitting on all cylinders and they're just so much on each other's level. I think Devontae Adams torches that Niners secondary. And yeah, like I said, both agree. Packers moving on to the conference championship.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there. So we both had. This is the one where we had a different matchup. The first one today we had a different matchup. I had the Rams versus the Buccaneers. You have the Cardinals versus the Buccaneers. So either way, the Bucs going up against an NFC West team. The Rams they did lose to early in the year. I don't believe they played the Cardinals this year, but this should be an interesting matchup either way. How are you feeling about Buccaneers versus Cardinals?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's tough to say. I mean, the Buccaneers again are just devastated by injuries, but I still like the Buccaneers to beat the Cardinals here. I mean, that Tom Brady factor, it's so hard to see the way he's played over the course of his career, the way he's shown up and performed in the playoffs. I mean, he's taken what he did with the Bucs last year on the road. They didn't win their division. They had to play in the wild card, won 3 straight on the road, including going into Lambeau. I think, this year obviously are at home. Both games, I think Cardinals come into Tampa Bay, and I think the Cardinals are just a little bit too young, a little bit too inexperienced, and I think the Buccaneers handle them. I don't particularly think this one will be a close game. I could see Kyler Murray struggling in this one, just a little bit. I think Tampa Bay's defense is good. They do a really good job against stopping the run, and I think that could limit what the Cardinals' offense can do a little bit. They've been good at running the football all year, and you just can't do that against Tampa. So I think it's going to be a lot on the shoulders of Kyler Murray, and I think he's just a little bit too inexperienced, and I think the moment just gets a little bit of the best of him here, and Tampa Bay moves on to set up a rematch of last year with Green Bay.
I also agree with this. I don't think they're putting the Rams on my end, but but I am picking the Buccaneers here as well. I think this is where some inexperience in the playoffs might get to Stafford a little bit. Um, the it's going to be a tight matchup. I think this one will be closer than it would be if it was Buccaneers Cardinals. But with uh with Tom Brady in the playoffs rolling like this, he's had one of the best seasons of his career. And he's 44 years old, which is just unbelievable. And I think Stafford's going to get a little overwhelmed with the pass rush by the Buccaneers here. And I think a lot of it at this point of the season really comes down to experience and poise. And there there are occasionally teams that are able to stay poised even though they don't have a lot of experience. And I don't think the Rams are able to do that this year. Um, I do think the Rams are going to give them a good run for their money, though, especially if the secondary for the Bucks can be a little shaky at times. They've mostly been hurt with injuries, but I think that the Buccaneers, Tom Brady is able to kind of beat up a little bit on the other guys in the secondary, not named Jalen Ramsey. So if Mike Evans and Jalen Ramsey are going 1v1 and Tom Brady is able to, he's making guys that come off the practice squad look like they're legit NFL guys. I mean, you got like Rashad Perryman, I think is Cyril Grayson. Um, he's got these guys that just kind of come out the woodworks and is able to make it work. So I think even if they take Mike Evans out, and I mean they're obviously still missing Godwin, I think Buccaneers are able to pull through and get that rematch with the Packers and Lambeau, like you said as well. So moving on to the AFC Championship, we have the Chiefs and the Titans on my end, and the Bengals and the Titans on your end. So I think these both would be great games if they happen. But how you feeling about Titans versus the Bengals?
I'm fully willing to follow my sword here. If the Bengals do lose in the first round, um, I think this this is such a tough game to pick because I mean, I could see Derrick Henry obviously running all over the Bengals defense, but I think the Bengals are a little bit more explosive offensively in terms of their receivers, and they're also a lot. They're just a lot more. They're healthier right now. In probably the shock of the entire postseason, I'm gonna stay on the Joe Burrow Bengals hype train. I'm gonna pick the Bengals to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. How about going from no playoff wins, Eric, to 3 in one postseason and a trip to the Super Bowl in your quarterback's second year in the league, first postseason experience? I mean, I think when they match up, Tennessee does have a good defense. And obviously the Derrick Henry, just keep hammering home Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, Derrick Henry, but he's what makes Tennessee's offense go. And coming off of an injury is hard enough, especially one to the lower body like Derrick Henry had for as big as he is and what he can do running the football. I'm worried that it will hinder him a little bit. And I think Cincinnati, if they need a play or a big play, they lead the league in big play offense this year. And I just think I like them to go and get it done, beat Tennessee, and punch a ticket to the Super Bowl.
Hey, I am definitely rooting for the Bengals this year to go far in the playoffs. So I mean, I would not be upset if your bracket ends up being correct on that side, but I am going to be taking the Titans here to beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And my reasoning is, again, I think that the Chiefs secondary and the defense can be shaky. Um, Derrick Henry's going to put a lot of pressure on him. I think no matter how healthy, like I said before, no matter how healthy he is, he's still someone the defense has to account for. It might be too much to handle. I think the Titans finally get over that hump and beat Kansas City, who they have looked good as of recently, but beginning of the season they looked really confused. And I think a lot of their gimmick plays that they have, that like little shuffle passes to Travis Kelce and little halfback passes and stuff that they do, jet sweeps, all that kind of stuff. I think the Titans are gonna, with the experience they have against the Chiefs, a lot, both in the postseason and they play a decent amount of regular season every year too. So I'm picking the Titans to pull this out. I think it'll be a close one as well. I think we might get a late Derrick Henry touchdown that pushes them over the edge, and the Titans finally break that seal against the Chiefs and get into the Super Bowl on the AFC side. So uh, you picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC, and I picked the Titans. So let's see who's going to face them. We have the Buccaneers and the Packers in the NFC side at Lambeau. Who's going to play the Bengals on your side?
Mention rematch of last year's NFC Championship game. Was honestly it was a really great game. I mean, the Buccaneers were able to overcome 3 Tom Brady interceptions. They had a really big play, changed the entire course of the game right before halftime. Scotty Miller burning Kevin King, which is just another one of those things you were talking about a couple segments ago about the Buccaneers. I feel like no one is able to bring in wide receivers off the streets or off the fourth or fifth string of the depth chart like Tom Brady. I mean, Scotty Miller last year, I had personally never heard of him before that game, and then he makes one of the biggest catches of the entire game. Really changed the landscape of that game. Gave Tampa Bay even more momentum going into halftime. And I mean, you can obviously talk about the no go on fourth down in the red zone for Green Bay, but I like Green Bay here. I think they've thought about that game a lot. I think Aaron Rodgers has something to play for this year in what could be his last season with the team. It is, I know it's hard for Packers fans to think about it. Well, if they go to the Super Bowl, Aaron Rodgers won't leave. I still think it is a possibility if he is as angry at that organization as he made it seem during the offseason. I mean, any guy that's willing to turn away as much money as he was going to make this season and just retire obviously had something against the organization. And I mean, Green Bay has done nothing really to give him any set him up for success. I mean, you think back to a couple drafts ago, they've just been clamoring for a wide receiver. Like, he needs help. He needs help. That's what hurt him against the 49ers. And they draft his replacement after he's coming off an MVP season. And it's like, just what are you doing? I mean, there was receivers on the board to be taken, but I think they've thought about this game. They're going to come into Tampa Bay's going to have to come back into Green Bay, which they showed last year was no problem. But I think Tom Brady has at times this year, and it's really been the story of Tom Brady's career. If you can put Tom Brady under pressure, I mean, the Bears beat him 2 years ago with that defense. Nick Foles, again, Tom Brady's Achilles heel. If Nick Foles is a quarterback in this game, no doubt I'm taking Green Bay. But if you get Tom Brady under pressure and force him to get the ball away quick, get him under duress, he does struggle. Green Bay's defense is much improved this year. They have the Zadarius and Preston Smith. Their defensive line is good. They have some good players in the secondary. Darnell Savage, the great corner Jair Alexander, who's an all-pro caliber player every single year. I think Green Bay does a good job, does just enough to make Tom Brady uncomfortable, and I think they get Aaron Rodgers a trip to his second Super Bowl with the Packers.
So your Super Bowl is going to be Packers and the Bengals. Meanwhile, mine will be two different teams than yours. I'm taking the Buccaneers to pull off the repeat, quote-unquote, upset against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. The Packers and Aaron Rodgers have a decently long history of choking in the NFC Championship games, and I think that will continue this year. I think that even though they saw guys like Scotty Miller burn them last year, I think that you still go into this game in the back of your head underestimating what their passing game can do. Even though you say, oh, it's still Tom Brady, he's still able to do whatever with anybody. I think in the back of your mind, it's still that way. I think the Buccaneers' offensive line has improved over the season as it's gone along, and Tristan Wirfs will be able to hold that edge for him. So I think the Buccaneers are able to pull this out in a close one, similar to last year's game. And with Rodgers and him on the offensive end, I think that the Buccaneers, like they have in the other two games I've talked about, be able to stop the run well. And you don't want to force Rodgers to throw a lot, but I think that the Buccaneers are able to game plan well for Rodgers, knowing how to play him like they did the last couple of years. I definitely could see the Packers pulling this out, but it's hard for me to bet against Tom Brady going into an unlucky NFC Championship team in the Packers, because every year it seems like they get there and Rodgers still goes to the Super Bowl and never able to pull it out. I think that happens again. I think it's gonna be the last straw for Rodgers to leave Green Bay. I think that it's gonna get to the point where he realizes that this team's ceiling just keeps being the NFC Championship game, and it just infuriates him to the point where he wants to go somewhere else. I think he should stay personally, because I think you're not going to find a better situation than what he's got right now. But I think this is going to be the last straw, and I think Brady's just going to get the best of him to the point where he wants out. So I have the Super Bowl being the Buccaneers and the Titans, and you have it being the Packers and the Bengals. So Packers, Bengals, who is your Super Bowl champion?
Well, I think this definitely would be another great matchup. I would love to see. It would just be such a good story for Cincinnati to make it. Um, I mean, I have confidence in all those picks. I really do think that they match up well offensively with a lot of those teams in the AFC, and I think that's what it's going to take to beat some of them. However, I think the ship does stop with Green Bay. I think Green Bay has a much better roster. I mean, Cincinnati, I think a lot of people still thought they would be a rebuilding team this year. And I mean, their roster is very young. I mean, Jamar Chase is a rookie. Joe Burrow's in his second year. Joe Mixon's still young. They have young players all over the field. And I just think the Packers experience, Rodgers has been to a Super Bowl before. Granted, I don't think, aside from maybe David Bakhtiari, none of them were on that roster back then in 2011. But I think Rodgers and that offense, I think the Bengals would have no answer for Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, and they certainly wouldn't have an answer for Devontae Adams. And this is tough. I mean, I'm a Bears fan. I hate to pick the Packers to win the Super Bowl, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers is just so good. I mean, it's hard to bet against him. I mean, he's playing for something this year. And I mean, I think the game last year against the Buccaneers really haunted him. I mean, he's 1-3. One of the best quarterbacks of our generation and of all time is 1-3 in the NFC Championship game. I mean, it's crazy to think that him and Rex Grossman have been to the exact same number of Super Bowls. I think Rodgers is more motivated this year than ever before, and I think they are able to get it done and hoist the Lombardi Trophy and bring it back. Fitting that Vince, the former Packers coach, owner, or former Packers coach, winner of the first two Super Bowls. I think the Lombardi Trophy comes back to Lambeau Field, and I think they're able to get it done against a very young, inexperienced, but good and will be for a long time Bengals team.
I think the Bengals would give him a good fight in that as well. But if I had to pick in that game, I'd pick the Packers too. Um, Mine, however, is the Buccaneers and the Titans in the Super Bowl, and I am going to be leaning the Buccaneers way for a back-to-back Super Bowl rings. And I think, again, it comes down to a lot of things that I've said before. I do think Derrick Henry would have the best game out of any running back, having playing against the Buccaneers defense in this postseason. But we saw what this defense did to Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year. Totally shut him down in a shocker, and nobody expected it. And I think that they would have an easier time shutting down this Titans offense than they would the Chiefs offense from last year. So I think people will still underestimate the Buccaneers defense, even though they've been playing pretty well. And then Tom Brady can do Tom Brady things to a Titans team that I think the Titans are worse than the Packers. So I think this might be a little bit easier for of a game than the NFC Championship game will be. But I think the Buccaneers pull it out. Brady gets his 8th ring, as crazy as that sounds. I think that I don't think it'll be as lopsided as last year's game, because that was an absolute shocker. I think the Titans will at least put up a touchdown, but but I think the Buccaneers are able to pull it out and have everyone questioning how in the world is Tom Brady still doing this at 44 years old. So Your Super Bowl was Packers Bengals. You had the Packers winning, and mine is Buccaneers Titans with the Buccaneers going back to back. So, how you feeling overall about your picks and any other thoughts about the postseason?
Like I said, I think I'll be the first one to fall on my sword if the Bengals were to lose in the first round. Like I said, I really do think that they match up well with a lot of those teams in the AFC in terms of offensively,
Mm-hmm.
especially the Raiders game. I think that's going to be an absolute shootout. Same with the Chiefs game. We already saw the Chiefs game be a shootout, and I think that I like them in both those games. The Titans game, I'm a little iffy on, again, just because Derrick Henry, the Bengals defense has not been good this year, and no one has shown an ability to stop Derrick Henry. But again, I just trust Joe Burrow more than I trust Ryan Tannehill, and I think that is important when it comes down to something like that. If you have to make Ryan Tannehill, if you're Cincinnati, making Ryan Tannehill beat you is the best thing that you can do. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying I feel I would trust Joe Burrow a lot more in that situation. And then on the flip side, um, Buccaneers Packers, I think that's going to be a matchup that a lot of people have this year in the NFC Championship game. I
Mm-hmm.
could see a lot of people picking the Niners to potentially upset Green Bay just because you can run the football on Green Bay. That has been their one issue this year, and no one runs the football better than the 49ers. So I would definitely be worried about that one on the NFC side. But again, I think Aaron Rodgers is just so much better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Packers roster as a whole is better than the Niners. And then, I think if we get blessed with Packers Buccaneers meeting up again in the NFC Championship game, I don't think football fans could ask for a better matchup. I think that's going to be an absolute gem. It was last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited to watch part two if that were to be the case. Yeah, I'm excited. I think bracket looks good. I'm confident now. However, things could change by halftime of a couple of these games, but I'm feeling good. How about you, Eric?
I'm feeling pretty good as well. One thing that stands out to me a lot was a lot of these wild card picks were harder than I feel like they usually are. I feel like a lot of these teams got some bad draws as far as their opponents. The Bills having to play the Patriots again. The Cowboys having to go up against that really hot Niners team, and the Cardinals Rams having to go at it again. So I think those all the teams that got that I did not pick in those games really could win those games, and they're really 50-50 picks. I just went with my gut, what I felt like was deciding factors, but I could see my bracket being really wrong and not being overly upset about it because I don't feel like I'm picking anything that's too crazy of an upset, but there's just so many good games, especially wildcard weekend, which there's usually like the four seeds in some of the playoffs are like not great because of the worst team that won a division, but they're the Rams and the Bengals this year, which yeah, the Bengals won the Super Bowl, and I have the Rams at least win their first game. So I think that this this playoffs outside of the seven seeds is a lot deeper than it usually is, and I think that it's going to be a lot more entertaining to watch, especially early on. So I feel pretty confident in my picks. I think that this is finally the year that the Chiefs are able to get beaten by somebody. I think their inconsistency and their defensive flaw might be too much to overcome to get back to the Super Bowl again. But I mean, Mahomes does seem to pull a rabbit out of his hat, so it wouldn't surprise me if they did go back. But I'm feeling pretty confident, and I'm looking forward to seeing how ours play out and compare it a couple weeks from now and see if we were totally wrong and if you did fall into the store with the Bengals pick, or if there's any upsets like if the Titans aren't able to hold on despite having the best record in the AFC, they've been a little shaky here and there too. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we got some good picks here. I'm happy we eventually differentiated a little bit because at first we both picked the same, and then we both picked the Niners one, and I was like, oh, we're gonna pick like a lot of the same the whole way through. But I'm happy we had some different games so that one of us will be right compared to the other one. But no, this was good.
I'm gonna be the happiest man in the world here in a couple of weeks if I wake up and Cincinnati's playing on Super Bowl Sunday against Green Bay. But I think, yeah, I'm at playoff time. I feel like there's always something crazy that tends to happen in one of these games. I mean, I remember a couple years ago, the Minneapolis Miracle,
Mm-hmm.
the Saints blew a chance to go back to the NFC Championship game. Then, of course, I mean, the no call against the Rams Saints that
Oh,
got the
geez,
Rams
yeah.
or that got the Rams into the Super Bowl. I mean, I feel like there's just always I think something crazy will happen in one of these games that's going to surprise a lot of people. And I mean, I think overall, in terms of, I think, yeah, like you said, other than the Chiefs Steelers matchup, which I think the Chiefs just got an absolute cakewalk
Oh,
into
yeah.
the divisional round. I think the teams that made the playoffs this year, I think legitimately are going to have to put together some good games. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I did not expect the Patriots to be here. I didn't expect the Bengals or the Eagles to
Mm-hmm.
be this good. And I
I
mean, I
agree.
think it was kind of crazy coming into the season. I feel like a lot of people thought that the NFC West would get 3 teams into the playoffs, but I don't think anybody expected it to be the Cardinals as opposed to the Seattle Seahawks. And I mean, it just goes to show him in the NFL, crazy stuff has happened. And I mean, good for Arizona. They were the NFL's only undefeated team at one point this year. And I mean, have really been up and down since then. But I mean, yeah, I think so many just good matchups across the board. I think fans are going to be in for a very good wild card weekend. And then going forward, I think the playoffs are only going to get better and more competitive from there.
I agree. I think if you're a fan of anyone that's in the playoffs besides the Steelers and maybe the Eagles, you could legit see yourself going far in these playoffs. So um, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be back next week, talk about what happens in these games and kind of analyze it, compare it to our brackets, and hopefully we got most of them right. But I think there's only one we differentiated on, and it was the Cardinals and the Rams game. But other than that, we all had this. We had the same picks, so it should be interesting. Should be a lot of fun. We'll probably go on Twitter a little bit and tweet some reactions to whatever's happening. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gone Pro Pod. Um, couldn't get the full name on there because it was a little too long, but um, yeah. Do you have any closing remarks about the playoffs or anything else that's been happening? Or
I'm excited. Yeah, definitely be sure to tune back in next week. Gonna have the full reaction. See what we think. Probably, hopefully, gonna mix some more sports in next week. Could have some NFL coaching hires, GM hires. I know a lot of teams are getting the hiring process cranked up. NBA's in full swing. The NBA All Star Game's right around the corner.
mm-hmm.
Not sure what's going to happen yet with the MLB season. College basketball, obviously, in full swing as well. Hopefully, mix in have some more sports to talk about next week. I mean, it feels like there's always something exciting going on. But yeah, no, just like you said, follow us on Twitter at the Gone Pro Pod. We'll be back next week. More exciting stuff for you guys. Just stay tuned, and thanks for coming along this ride with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. As always, we appreciate all the support. We received a good amount of support early on in the show. We really appreciate everyone reaching out and showing love. So yeah, next week we'll talk about what happens in these games. We have some other ideas too, like when they announce the NBA All Star selections, we'll do like a draft. Like we both take control of one of the teams. That could be a fun idea. We're gonna have a March Madness bracket stream eventually. So we got some fun ideas. We got some segments that we're gonna have on the regular shows. Especially the first one was kind of our opener show, and this one's the NFL predictor show. But after that, we're gonna have some staple segments that are gonna be some fun ones as well to keep an eye out for. So yeah, thank you guys for watching or listening. As always, we appreciate your support. Um, Feel free to send us a message if you want anything to talk about on the show. And we,
Or even if you want to get at me, tell me I'm an idiot for picking the Bengals to make the Super Bowl. Any any comments you guys have? Listen, I mean, I'm all for it, like I said, but hey, I'm confident. I'm going to ride the wave. I could be a very sad man or a very happy man when we come back to do the show next week.
yeah, I, I definitely feel that. Well, hey, thank you again, guys. Take care. Have a good weekend. Enjoy some football, and we'll talk to you next week. All right. Peace out.